Good evening, Opportunity families. It's Mandy Rain, your friendly principal. I want to welcome you to a webinar tonight to go over some of the details about getting school started here next week. We are super excited to see our kids. We miss them so much. And although we're starting virtually, we have some great offerings for our students, and our teachers are prepared. And so tonight is a webinar to kind of explain some of those details and then ask some questions. There is a button at the bottom of your screen for a Q&A. If you have questions during the presentation, please put them in the Q&A box, and some of our panelists will be trying to answer those for you. And then at the end of our presentation, we'll have some time for a Q&A to answer some of your questions. So first, I want to start off with introducing the panelists that you can see on your screen tonight. First, we have Jasmine, who's our moderator. We're happy to have her with us. And then we have some Opportunity staff members. We have Casey Beard, who works in our extended resource classrooms. We have Becky Banks, a first grade, second grade teacher, and a newly hired dean of students. We have Katie Norman, a second grade teacher and a principal intern for this school year. We have Andrew Walters, a third grade teacher and last year's principal intern. Of course, you know Mr. Howard, our assistant principal, and a few other folks from Central Valley that are helping us with this webinar tonight. So we will get started with our PowerPoint as soon as it pops up on the screen. And we may break out in dance and song, so just be ready for that. So as you can see on this screen, these are just the names of all of our attendees tonight, our panelists. And I'm going to turn it over for our next panelist to speak, Mr. Howard.
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to be talking just briefly about our elementary school timeline. So as you can see on the slide, and I know that there's been a lot of communication that's gone out, all of our students will be receiving a Chromebook. So if you don't have a Chromebook for every kid that is in your household that goes to a centralized school, you have the opportunity to go pick one of those up. We'll be talking a little bit more about those locations. They're at University High School and CV, but a little bit more about the process later in the slides. So please, if you haven't already done that, make sure that you follow through and pick up some Chromebooks for your kids as soon as possible. We are still working on class assignments. Our enrollment is continuing to evolve. So we will have class assignments to you no later than Tuesday, September 8th. Hopefully we'll have those class assignments to you much sooner than that. Unlike previous years, this year we'll be doing a kind of a modified open house the day before school on September 8th. We're not going to be able to get everybody together, but we're going to do sort of a drive-through open house where you'll get a chance to pick up all the school supplies your kids will need. So we're putting all those together right now. In fact, tomorrow we'll be stuffing those into bags. And on September 8th, between 4:30 and 6 p.m., we're going to invite you to come to our school, and we'll have more details coming from our school on how that is exactly going to work, but you'll be able to pick up those materials. Kids will get to see their teacher, and we have some neat items that we're looking forward to sharing. As you know, too, our first day of school will be Wednesday, September 9th. Kids will start at 9:30 a.m. Parents, you're going to be getting an email Thursday night that will give you directions on how to get into Blackboard and Zoom and give you the opportunity to practice that a little bit on Thursday. That way, if you run into problems, you can communicate back with us on Friday, and we can get you all taken care of so that we're ready to go on Wednesday morning. That Wednesday, we're going to talk a little bit more about those first 3 days of school. But the one thing I want to point out, too, is if you have a kindergartner this year that is not an ER student, a kindergartner, coming to our school, they won't start until the following week, Monday. So we will be doing some assessments of those kids, and teachers will be reaching out with directions for that. So those students will have conferences starting the first day of school in the morning, and they won't be logging on to Blackboard to attend their virtual session. If we could go to the next slide, please. So we have adopted digital curriculum across the district. And one of the things that we heard from the community last year was there's just too many places to go. I don't know what my login is for Seesaw or Classroom or whatever all those tools were that we were using in the spring. So we have a single platform now called Blackboard Ultra. So you'll be getting information on this on tomorrow evening, but basically every day we'll be going to Blackboard Ultra. That site will house our schedules for the day, as well as any relevant links that kids will need to go to their virtual learning experiences, whether it's MobiMax or Zern or other tools that we'll be using. Our teachers have been going through a lot of training over the last couple of weeks. There has been continuous professional development happening for those teachers to get them prepared for this first day of school, and they're really looking forward to it. In fact, summer school was a great experience. If any of your kids attended summer school, we learned a lot from summer school, and we're applying those things that we learned to our virtual start for the school year this year. Let's see. We will also, on that first week of school, kids are only going to be going to school for 2 hours. They're going to be there from 9:30 to 11:30. And after that, we'll have conferences. So normally our conferences would be later in the fall. We're doing conferences on those first 3 days of school. So your teacher will be reaching out to schedule a virtual conference with you as an opportunity to connect with students, connect with you, get to know you, and that kind of thing. The other thing that we're doing that I think is really exciting is we're putting together a lot of resources for parents. So we're curating not only videos that we're creating, but other resources available to support you as you support your kids home learning at home. So watch for that information. In fact, I sent an email out today via Blackboard. Be checking your email because every day there's new communication coming, but I'm excited about those professional development opportunities for parents. I'm going to hand it off to our next panelist as we dig into our next slide. And that will be going over a typical school day at our school.
And the next panelist is me. I am Andrew Walters, a third grade teacher. So let's talk about what a typical school day will look like for kids virtually. Learning will happen all day long, and that's going to consist of the following 3 components. Live instruction, which is where we are whole group on the same lesson. Small group, where a teacher works with a small group of students, or independent work, where students are working on their own or with other students. School is going to start at 9:30 and ends at 3:10. After school, teachers will be available to support students and families from 3:10 to 3:40. Specific schedules are being created by grade level teams, but lunch will be from 12 to 12:30 for all students. There will be 2 15-minute breaks for students during the school day. Students and families can receive support from our school counselor, our on-site mental health counselor, special educators, and our partnership with the Community in Schools program. Every day, students will have about 90 minutes of reading instruction, 45 minutes of writing, 60 minutes of math, 30 minutes of science or social studies, and 20 minutes of movement and fine arts. And all of our teachers will be focusing on social and emotional learning. Social and emotional learning helps us to understand and manage our emotions, set and achieve goals, establish and maintain positive relationships, and learn to make good decisions. And I think that's it for me. We'll pass that off to our next panelist.
Hi there, it's Mrs. Banks, and I wanted to share with you a little bit about what that first day of school is going to look like, because we're all a little unsure still. So for our option 1 and 2 students, these will be students that are working through that live instruction. We're going to have the 9:30 start time, and again, like Mr. Howard mentioned, it's a half day, so it'll be ending at 11:30. Students will open up their Chromebook and go to our www.cvvl.org virtual learning site. From there, they're going to go ahead and click on the virtual learning tab and then go to the student Blackboard site within that. Once there, they're going to be prompted to go ahead and enter their username and password. Both of those will be sent for more information with you in the next couple of days. And once in Blackboard, they're going to go ahead to click on the link to join their students' class Zoom meeting for the very first day. Now for option 3 students and option 4 students, these are the self-paced students. So again, the families are going to work to decide what works best for them and their schedules. But they're going to follow that same first format where they log on to their Chromebook, go to that same website and click on the student Blackboard site. Once they get in, it'll look a little bit different. They're going to go ahead and go to their weekly agenda that is posted by a teacher, and then go ahead and begin their weekly assignments for that day. All right, go ahead and passing it off to the next person.
Hi, my name is Casey Beard. I am an extended resource teacher at OP. I'm here just to cover the layout for special education. There were 3 options provided for families. Option 1 is in-person service delivery. We understand that not all needs can be met through a virtual platform. So students will be in person for their specially designed instruction with those appropriate measures in place for health and safety. Option 2 is a hybrid model where students will access their general education instruction virtually, and then they will have in-person learning for their specially designed instruction. And then option 3 was a full remote service delivery. So both general education instruction and special designed instruction will be provided virtually. So yeah.
Hi, I'm Katie Norman, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Chromebook device distribution. And then I'll tell you next a little bit more about food during virtual learning. So first, if you do not already have a Chromebook, we strongly suggest you check it out if you don't have a device that is dependable for your students' learning. You can pick up one of those devices Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. and 3 to 7 p.m. through September 11th. They will be distributed at Central Valley High School and at University High School. Central Valley School District is also working to provide families internet access and additional options if they need it. If you do need help, please call the Central Valley Help Desk anytime between 7 a.m. and 9:30 p.m. You can also always call the Opportunity Office and we will help you as much as we can. On the next slide, we are going to, once school is up and running, we are going to offer some additional technology help opportunities. You can drive up with your technology, so your Chromebook or device, and you will have some trained people to help you a little bit with that. Those dates are September 15th, 17th, 22nd, and 24th. And you can access the help between 4 and 6 p.m. at SVT, at U High, at CV, at Selkirk Middle School, and at Evergreen Middle School. If you have any questions about that or need reminders, you can always call the office again. A lot of information. Next, I'll tell you a little bit about food options during virtual learning. During this time, we are going to have a little bit different distribution. We'll still have the Monday through Friday, 1 lunch and 1 breakfast, curbside meal pickup through the parent pickup loop from 11 to 1 p.m., but we'll also have meal boxes. Those are weekly boxes of 5 breakfasts and 5 lunches, and you can pre-order those at cvsd.org/nutrition, and then you will pick them up between 7:30 and 9:30 a.m. and 11 and 1 p.m. Those are available Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, also through the parent pickup loop. So remember that if you want to do that, though, that you'll need to pre-order them through cvsd.org/nutrition. And we're going to send it back to Dr. Rain to follow up with childcare.
Welcome back, Opportunity. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about childcare, and this has all just come together in the last week. We recognize in our community that it's a strain on a lot of families to have to provide childcare. And so we have partnered with Valley Point Church and the Boys and Girls Club located at Keystone Elementary, which is the school that some of our kids were in when we were in construction. You can register for daycare at cvsd.org, or you can call our office, and our secretaries, Cindy and Anita, would be happy to help you. The cool thing about this is it's an all-day option for your student to go. There will be small groups of students, I think maybe 30 kids at Valley Point, separated in groups of 5. And we are sending some of our staff to Valley Point and to the Boys and Girls Club to help kids do their virtual learning throughout the day. So Valley Point and Boys and Girls Club will provide some staff, but we also will provide some Central Valley School District staff. And some of those staff come right from Opportunity. So the kids will see Mrs. Brenneman and Mrs. Madden at Valley Point and some of our other staff at Keystone. So if daycare is a concern for you, please go to the website and sign up. And if you're struggling to get to the website, tomorrow morning, Cindy and Anita will be in the office at 9 a.m. Give them a phone call and they'd be happy to fill that out for you right while you're talking with them on the phone. We'd love to see our kids taking advantage of this awesome opportunity. And I'm going to pass it on to the next slide.
I'm sorry about that. I was answering some questions in the chat. So transitioning to in-person. We absolutely plan to reopen as soon as our local Department of Health says it's safe to do so. So we are looking at those guidelines every day, looking at the numbers of new cases that we have in our region. And when it is safe to do so, and we get the green light from them, we will open within 5 days. So we want to open with our youngest students first. They're our top priority. So we want those primary kids in the school as soon as possible. They will be #1 priority when we get that green light. Our school is completely already set up for this. So in our teacher's classroom, all the desks have been spaced for social distancing. Protocols for cleaning are in place. We have all of the tables that we'll need to check students' temperature when they enter the building all set up. All those protocols are laid out and the school is ready to roll. So our goal would be that as soon as it's safe to do so, within that 5 days, we have those kids back in our school. And all of those other pieces that go along with that, meals, transportation, all of that work is being done right now to ensure that we're ready to roll. So it is our plan to open as soon as possible. And could we advance that slide, please?
Okay, opportunity community, that is it for our slides, and we're hoping that we answered a whole bunch of questions, but we may have created a whole bunch of new questions. I know Mr. Howard and our moderator have been answering the questions, but now it's going to be a time for Q&A. Jasmine's going to take us through that, so I'm going to turn it over to her.
Hi, my name is Jasmine, and as Mandy noted, I will be moderating this portion of the session. So please feel free to submit your questions in the Q&A box down below, which some have already been doing, which is great. I would just like to note that we will see everyone's questions. We will likely not have time to answer all of them live, but we are compiling all of the questions and can certainly follow up individually for further communication to ensure that your questions are answered. So to start us off, we've received a few questions about the Chromebook. Are children allowed to use their own device if preferred, or does it need to be the Chromebook provided by the school?
I'll take that one. So you are not required to use a Chromebook that's provided by the school, but I think it would be a good idea to have one anyway. So I've had a couple questions that I've been madly responding to here. People that have, maybe they have a Mac at home or they have a PC or an iPad. All of those will work, with the exception that iPad could be difficult depending on typing and what assignments the teachers are doing. If they're doing anything with Google, which they likely will be, sometimes the iPad doesn't play well with that. So I would recommend that you pick up a Chromebook, even if you don't think you might need it. That way you have it, at the ready. The other thing that you should know about it is our teachers use a tool called Goguardian. This tool allows them to see what's on students' screens. Goguardian is a really great classroom management tool, but it can also be a really great tool to help support them, navigating the computer, the technology, or navigating you as a parent trying to figure out where you're going. If we're using a Chromebook, we can see what's on your screen. We won't be able to see that on any personal device that's used. So I think if it was me, I would want to use a Chromebook, but understanding that you have those personal computers at home, they will all work, with the exception of the iPad maybe being a little bit difficult.
Great, thank you. Can you please talk about the cadence or timeline of when curriculum will be available for self-paced families?
Yes, great, great question. So we have been purchasing curriculum the last couple of weeks, and self-paced families will be using a curriculum for reading called Lexia. That has been purchased and teachers are going to be trained on it. The Lexia system does everything for you. Teachers and parents don't have to interact with it much at all. And basically the kids go on and take an assessment and it places them, and then it starts giving them assignments automatically. That should be ready to roll on the first day of school for all of our self-paced students. Our self-paced students are also going to be using Zern Math, which all of our students will be using Zern Math, which is also an online program. And that has been purchased and is ready to go. And so to answer that, every curriculum that your child will need should be ready to go on the first day of school. And they will have some assignments that first week to basically do some placement tests in these online platforms so that we know where they are in all these subjects, especially after being gone since March. And those platforms will help us as teachers know where to start with kids and where to pick up where they left off.
Thanks, Mandy. We've received a few questions about elementary students and the need for recess. Can you please talk about this more?
Well, I have to tell you that recess is one of my favorite things, personally. Mr. Howard and I try to do recess a lot, but we recognize that recess is significantly important. When kids are back in the building, they will be getting probably more recess than they used to before. But for when we're virtual, what we've trained our teachers to do and what we learned through summer school is our kids need lots of breaks. So although there's a sample schedule on the website and we've sent you some of those samples, our teachers are going to be watching your kids kind of like a hawk, and teachers are great at this. This is what they do. Even in the regular classroom, they're teaching and giving a lesson, and they can tell half the kids are moving all over the floor, and they immediately take breaks, and they do things like Go Noodle, which is a fun, interactive online dancing and movement. They may do things like everyone get up and go get something to share, and the kids have to go around their house and come back and sit down. So there's lots of strategies that teachers will be using to engage them kind of in recess or movement, we would call it, while they're virtually. And then when they're back in school, we will have recess as usual, but they actually will be getting more recess just because of the outside time and a break from the masks and all those pieces.
Can you please talk about the lunch options that will be available for weekly and daily boxes?
Mrs. Norman, do you want to touch on that?
Sorry, I couldn't get it to unmute. Can you repeat the question? I was also trying to answer some questions.
So can you please talk about the lunch options that will be available for weekly and daily boxes?
Specifically as to what is in the food or what is in the boxes, I do not know. But generally, they are well-balanced meals and provide the caloric and well-rounded meals that a child would need for breakfast and for lunch. So all of the meals are carefully planned to ensure that your child would have their health needs met, but I have no idea what is going to be in them. In the past, there was juice and canned or fresh fruit and sandwiches, and I know that there are going to be some frozen and some fresh things in the boxes so that you can keep them for later in the week. So if you had a sandwich on Monday, it wouldn't go bad. But so there'll be a mix of fresh and frozen items as well. I hope that helps.
Thank you. We've also received a few questions about what to expect for childcare. I know this was briefly mentioned in the presentation, but can you please talk about this in a little more detail?
Yeah, I'll do my best. As I had stated, this has all just kind of come together this week. So we haven't been given times, but the intent is to provide a school day worth of childcare. And so if you can imagine 5 kids in a room with an aide, and then they're all on their Chromebooks doing their live teaching with their teacher, they just would be sitting at Valley Point or Keystone rather than sitting in your house. And of course, we could have option 1 students there and option 4 students there. And so some kids may be doing self-paced and some kids may be doing live instruction with their teacher. And then the aides that will be in those places will be there for their breaks, and they may be able to get to do some things like recess. I know that Keystone has a playground, and so does Valley Point. So probably some fresh air time during the day, and lunch is provided. I believe all of that will be happening for our students. But what we'll do is Mr. Howard and I, as soon as we have exact details about about times, we will send that, but it's just all coming together just this week. So more info to come on that.
Thank you. When will information around teachers and class assignments be provided to parents?
We would love to give that to you right now. We are continuing to have students enroll. Our numbers are interesting in that we have a lot more students than we have space for right now. But the good news is a lot of that was made up with families choosing options 2 and 3. As far as giving you, what I can say is by September 8th, I wish we could say tomorrow or tonight, but as things evolve, we have to just keep placing kids and looking at those numbers so that we can ensure that we have accurate counts and that everybody's placed into a classroom appropriately.
And I can just give an example. Currently, we have enough second graders to add another classroom and add another teacher, but we don't have a teacher. So we couldn't even tell those parents who the teacher is because we don't know who it is yet. So we would have to be hiring. So Mr. Howard and I have been working through that with the district office on a daily basis. And it's actually normal practice at Opportunity because we have so many students that move. About 30% of our school turns over every year, that we don't often tell class lists until the open house day because we are often hiring teachers on the day before school. So this is pretty normal practice for us. I know it's not like that for other schools, but so we'll have that ready for you when you come through to the teacher meet and greet and the learning pack pickup, and you will actually get to see your teacher through your car windows and wave at them, and they'll get to say hi, which we think will be really fun for the students.
Thank you. What will daily schedules be like for students with individualized education plans as well as in special needs?
We are trying to make it as normal as possible to ease the transition back into school. So I know there are a lot of different things coming at the students this year. So despite all of that, with the 6 feet apart and the masks and us having to wear the precautions and the shields, we're trying to make the schedule as consistent and routine as possible. We're trying not to make too many changes to them and keep it really positive and light. But there won't be any major changes. Like they said, we'll probably get more recess than we have in the past. We'll be doing a lot more we can only have small groups up to 2 kids. So it'll be a lot more one-on-one time probably. Yeah, so just trying to make it as routine and consistent and normal as possible.
Thank you. We've received a few questions about learning options. If a family decides to change their mind throughout the year, do they have the option to reevaluate?
Yes, families have the option to reevaluate at any time, but there are some details, detail specific. So if you have chosen option 1 or option 4, we are planning for you to come back when we open. So you are being placed in a classroom with a teacher. And like we were talking about before, we have to do social distancing. So right now we can only get 15 kids in our K-3 classrooms just with space, and 18 kids in our 4-5 classrooms. So if you've chosen option 2 or 3 and decide you want to come back, we would love for you to come back, but we have to have a desk for your child to sit in. So what we'll be doing is making a list of people that want to come back, and if people want to stay virtual, and then once a spot opens up, you'll be able to come back. If you've chosen option 1 or 4, It'll be a lot easier for you to change your mind if you choose not to come back when kids are allowed back and stay virtual. But it may be a little bit of a waiting game if you've chosen to be virtual and now want to come back to school. It'll just be based on space.
Thank you. We've also received a lot of questions around parent involvement and support. How much time should parents plan to dedicate per day to helping their child? And are there resources available to help mitigate this work-life-school balance?
I have 3 kids, and if you're an option 1 student, the idea would be that it would be like you're in a normal school day. So that teacher is going to log on with you, and you're going to be going through the day with that teacher. So if we were in a normal back to school environment where we were face to face, we wouldn't expect teachers to be available during that time, or parents to be available during that time to support kids. So how much time, that's a tough one to answer. If you're an option 4 parent, then you're looking at a self-paced environment. That's going to be more involved, I think, on the parents' end to be providing that support. But the reason it would be self-paced is so that you can determine when that time would best fit with your family. So how much time, or during the day, we're hoping that you don't have to be there 100% of the time throughout the day, and that your family can work out those times to provide support. Now, from our teachers, we're going to be doing a lot of communication. Our numbers are smaller than ever before in our classrooms. We're only going to have 15 students in a classroom, and part of those students will be option 4 students as well. So I anticipate that our teachers will have a lot more opportunity to communicate with you and work individually with students as well. They also have teacher access time at the end of every day, with that opportunity for you to call in, email, whatever you might need to do so that you can get that support that you need.
Would Mrs. Banks or Mr. Walters, you guys both taught summer school, and it was only 2 hours, but you were with kids for 2 hours. Maybe you could touch on, did the parents have to be involved in that, or were they pretty engaged just with you and so mom can work or dad can work? Maybe you could touch on that for us.
I can touch on it a little bit with the younger kids. This summer, I did work with our kindergartners who were transitioning into 1st grade. So those young kids who really didn't have a lot of experience on Chromebooks are working within this model. And I want to provide a little sense of reassurance in that the parents did help with the first couple of days of getting the kids on, getting them accustomed to, but we did spend a lot of time teaching the kids, okay, this is how you get to your classroom, so that really they could start to establish that independency. And then when it comes to the stamina of being on screen, we know that just like in the classroom, kids are still working on learning how to be a part of that. And that virtual screen is no different than in the classroom. So we did a lot of breaks where I said, get up, go move, go to the restroom, get a snack, get water, so that the kids have that break. But the parents, for the most part, were pretty independent in that the kids got on with the help of the parent if needed. And then if not, I took over from that point. I was there teaching with them. They did help a little bit with the technology aspect, but then like our other moderators have kind of mentioned, that the Goguardian program allowed me to help coach some of our parents who were struggling with technology, and our kids too. So when a kid got bounced from our Zoom classroom because of connection issues, I was able to negotiate and get him back into the room independently without his parent having to come in and do that. So I know our teachers are in this learning period too, but I have full confidence that we'll be able to really treat this in that model of working together so that the kids can be independent in that option 1 student or the option 2 students who are doing that live teaching in that same model that we would do in the classroom.
And I just wanted to add on that I also had a few bumps initially with kids trying to get connected, but once they understood how to get there, it was pretty smooth sailing. And I know we may have been in the past where parents really had to manage a lot, but in my day, I feel that's my responsibility as a teacher. I'm going to be there trying to help figure out, why something's not working, and be alongside your student. And as a last resort, we may need to, call in the big dog's parents, but ultimately, my goal is to not have to do that. because that, I think, and in summer school, we really were able to navigate that with very little involvement.
Great, thank you. We've received a few questions around kindergartners and how it's going to work with them using computers while not being able to read. Can you please talk more about this?
Mrs. Banks, you had an experience with kindergartners. Would you like to take that one?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit more about that. So things like where you would use the chat feature with the older kids. Obviously, most of our kindergartners or first graders don't have that experience of typing in that piece. So we did a lot of live pieces where they would write something down using that inventive spelling that we do in the classroom anyways, and then hold it up to their screen so I can see their writing. When it came to reading, we didn't do a big push on that during our summer school because we were just getting them used to this in virtual environment. But we've had a lot of collegiate and collaborative discussions with our teachers about what could this look like when we're teaching kids to read. And the discussions and information that are coming from these meetings is just incredible, the way teachers are thinking about it. Things like, well, I usually do rotations, and during rotations I have 3 kids who are over reading books independently, and some kids will say, well, I can't read. Well, we teach them, yes, you can. You can read the pictures and things like that. While another set of kids are off working on independent writing, and they're writing notes in their notebooks. And then another group is over working with the teacher. And so that small group breakout piece can still work. It's just gonna feel a little different until we get used to it. And that's gonna be really a little bit down the road. So our intent and our goal is to kind of treat it just like we would a classroom where we have these rotations for our younger kids who are learning how to read, and then really begin to use that piece of working within groups and rotations. So it gives kids time away from the screen too if they're doing independent writing or independent reading, so that they have those little breaks and then bringing them back into it when it's time.
And I would like to add on, I'm going to shout out to our kindergarten teachers. Any of you parents who have been through Opportunity, we have some of the best kindergarten teachers I've ever worked with, and I've been in a lot of school districts, and they have been working day and night collaborating, trying to make a virtual environment work for 5-year-olds that don't read and don't write and need to move. And I am super confident that your kids are just going to have a ton of fun and be super engaged. And with the small class sizes, they're going to get one-on-one time with their teacher, even on through Zooms. And I think I have lots of confidence that it's going to be a great start for our little 5-year-olds.
Thank you. For students who choose options that are fully virtual, will there be opportunities for them to interact or connect with their peers?
Yes, there will be. So every student, regardless of the option they choose, will have a teacher that is connecting with them. So if they chose option 3 or 4, which is self-paced, the teacher will be reaching out to those students and working with those families about what their schedule would look like. And they will try to offer some sessions or some times where they may do a small group, or they could do a morning meeting. All of that would be voluntary, because some of our families that have chosen option 3 and 4 are choosing that because the students will be doing the work at night, or they'll be doing the work on the weekends. But the teacher will be organizing all those students' kind of schedules and seeing if there's any commonalities where they could provide a time for other student interaction or some social emotional learning like Mr. Walters had talked about. So I definitely think the teachers will be trying to provide that if those students are available during the times when the teacher would be available. And our teachers are also very flexible in the spring. Some of our teachers were offering things in the evening, and I'm not sure every teacher will be able to do that based on their own family, but we do have a lot of teachers that do have some times that they may be flexible in helping to make those connections for our students.
Great. Can you please speak to transportation options that will be available for students?
Yes, so for virtual, students will be at their homes unless they're a special education student, and those students have been contacted by their teachers, and special education students will be getting, our extended resource special education students are getting transportation, and we are working through our resource room students. When we come back to school, as soon as it's safe and the health department says we can come back, then our regular transportation will happen, except for there are some guidelines we have to follow from the state about social distancing on the buses. So Mr. Howard had touched on this earlier, but our transportation department has already been working on all the current routes that we normally run and how to do double or triple runs of those routes, because some of our buses have 50 kids on them and we can't have 50 kids on a bus. So people at the district office and the transportation department are working on that, so that way when we're ready to bring kids back, if your student uses the transportation will be provided.
Great, thank you. We've received a few questions around grading and how this will look as students won't be learning at the same pace. Can you please provide more information around this?
So grading in elementary school is very unique. In elementary school, we are looking for kids to meet the benchmarks and the targets. And although they get, how we grade them in elementary is meeting or exceeding or approaching or below level. And so we are currently working as a principal group, and we have some teacher representatives about what that looks like in a virtual setting. It's way different than high school. None of these grades matter for college. And so our ability to let go of some of that and just help kids reach the standards is really what we're looking for. So we don't have exact definite answers about grading, but as parents, I want you to just let go of some of that. I can tell you with 15 kids in a classroom, you're going to know exactly where your kid is, especially with these online platforms. Once they take these placement tests, and then teachers will be doing everything they can to try to get kids caught up and to the standard. Our goal will be to get kids to standard. And so the meeting and exceeding and approaching, although it's important information for you, I think we'll be working as a group to figure out what that looks like so that parents know where their students are. But I'm not sure it'll be a regular report card like we're used to. It'll be about where students are in each of those levels and how we help them get there. So more to come on that as we get some answers.
Thank you. Can you please speak to the mask policies that will be in place for teachers, staff, and students?
All of our staff are required to wear masks unless they're completely isolated by themselves in their own space, as well as anybody in the office. Our students are also going to be required to wear masks when they come back. I think that there may be special circumstances for some students when that won't be appropriate, and we'll work through those situations individually, but we will be requiring the use of masks all day. We will take mask breaks during the day. We know nobody likes to wear a mask all day, myself included. It just drives me crazy, and I know for our kids it's going to be the same way. So we'll be giving them opportunities to get outside, take that mask off, and not be stuck wearing it all day. So that's our plan.
Thank you. And as a follow-up question, can you discuss how that relates to special needs students specifically who will be returning sooner than other students?
We are definitely going to try our best to teach to those skills. We understand that there are unique needs and it might not always be possible. But like Mr. Howard said, we will be doing a lot of mask breaks. I've set up a system in my classroom so that students can ask for those breaks if there is just too much for them. But we do understand that there are circumstances that limit students' abilities to wear masks. But we do want, for the safety of everyone, the students to be wearing masks if possible.
Thank you. Will there be an opportunity for teachers to meet with parents, whether that be an in-person and socially distanced meet and greet or something virtual?
We are planning for the first 3 days of school for our teachers to meet with students and parents. That will be virtual. I wish that was in person, but it won't be. So our kids, those September 9th through 11th, will go to school from 9:30 to 11:30. So they'll have a modified day. It'll be kind of like conferences right off the bat. And then teachers will be working with all of you to schedule that time when you guys can get together virtually. Throughout the school year as well, we'll have that opportunity to to connect virtually, and then hopefully when we're back face to face, we'll have some of those options available so we can get together.
Thank you. Can you please talk about the amount of screen time students will be receiving? And how that will significantly impact their learning experience?
Yeah, so screen time is a big concern for us as educators and, well, for all of us, it seems like, in this virtual world we're all living in. And we know the best thing for students is to be in school, and we're going to get them here as soon as it's safe to get them here. So in the meantime, kids will be on a screen with the teacher if they're option 1 or option 2. If they're option 3 or 4, they'll be on a screen at their own time, working through assignments and lessons. But option 1 and option 2 students will spend the day with their teacher. But it won't be sitting like this, like we are now, for 6 hours, kind of like Mr. Walters and Mrs. Banks talked about. And I might have them touch on this a little bit in the 2 hours a day they were doing summer school, how much time the kids were sitting right on the screen. It could be that as a teacher, I'm delivering a reading lesson for about 10 minutes, and then I give the kids an assignment. Well, they're not going to turn their Zoom off because we don't want to have them log on and log off and log on and log off. Can you imagine that for five-year-olds? But they may turn and then they're sitting doing their work. And so they can see when Mrs. Banks brings them back as a group, but they're not sitting looking at the screen. And there'll be a lot of that. So lesson and then some work, lesson and then some break, get up and move around, time for lunch. So the screen will be on, but it doesn't mean they'll be sitting at this screen looking at the teacher all day long. So maybe Mr. Walters, Ms. Banks, do you want to touch on that just a little bit about what your experience was in the 2 hours that you did this, kind of in some?
Absolutely, yeah. You know, during those 2 hours, it felt like it was shifting every 15, 20 minutes. We're all together and we're kind of in this format now where you can see you can see a group of 10 people and now we're sharing, now the screen is being shared and we might be reading a book together and now let's get out our journals and now we're writing. So we were still, together, but we're writing and we're listening to some music and writing, in our journals. And now it looks like I'm losing them. So let's get up and let's get moving. And so it's so different to think about it because it is so screen centered because the screen is there and that's how we're seeing each other and learning together. But it's shifting all the time, and there are these big components of in-person independent work where they're getting their hands moving, with paper, with pencils, with crayons, and yeah.
I can piggyback on that a little bit with the younger kids, especially because I know that is a huge concern for our younger kids as well as our olders. It's really a little bit what I call a temperature check, right? You're watching your kids to see where they're at, just like Mr. Walters said. And then I would say one thing about our teachers is we are incredibly in tune with kind of where our kids are at. And when we notice that they need a break, okay, get up and go take your break. The kids by the end of the 2 weeks were very comfortable in saying, I need to use the restroom. So just like little things like that we do in the classroom. But like Mr. Walters said, using that kind of ebb and flow between being right in front of the screen or now we're drawing a picture together, but your eyes are pulled off of it a little bit was really helpful. And then breaks too. I know on the slide we talked about 2 15-minute breaks, but the reality is this is a new adventure for all of us. And so the kids need that permission to say, okay, Susie, it looks like you might need to go take a break. Go ahead and go check in with your parent if you need to do that, or take a couple laps around the room just to get up and get moving and then come back when you're ready to be comfortable to learn. The great part is using the different features that we have as a teacher. We can call them back at times and they can unplug their headphones and go out and do those things and be ready to join us when they're ready to learn.
Thank you. What will the process for the 504 evaluations be?
So every year, if your student already has a 504, every year there's a 504 update, and our counselor, Mr. Hastings, is in charge of those. And so as he comes back to work this week, he'll be gathering all that information, and it will look like it generally does. Sometimes he sends information home and it kind of goes back and forth, and we make sure kids have the accommodations they need, and then we sign off on that. Sometimes we have a team meeting with the parent, and we could still do that, but that would be virtually. If a student is in need of a 504, that also would go through Mr. Hastings, but it also could just go first through your classroom teacher. If you let your classroom teacher know, they will reach out to Mr. Hastings. He's just our coordinator, and he will set up a meeting, or will email you back and forth about your concerns and why you need your child to have a 504 plan. 504s are written for students that have typically a plan or something from their doctor. It could be a health concern and a reason for accommodations that would be necessary in the school day. So Mr. Hastings will be reaching out if you have one, and if you don't have one, then you'll let your classroom teacher know probably in that first parent meeting that you have a concern, and classroom teacher will make sure that the team takes care of that for you.
Thank you. Can you please talk about the distribution of physical learning packets for students who are fully virtual? i.e., will parents be able to pick those up from school, or will everything be scanned and printed?
Our plan is to have that open, kind of that virtual open house on September 8th. So those materials can be picked up at opportunity between 4:30 and 6 p.m. on that day. If for some reason you're not able to make that, we will work on those individual arrangements so that you have the materials. You're not going to be expected to necessarily scan materials and do all of that work yourself. We're planning to provide all of that, and anticipating that all assignments and any work that's coming back will be virtual. No need to print, scan, etc.
And every single opportunity student can come and get a packet. So whether you're all virtual, I think that was what the question Jasmine was getting at, whether you're all virtual or you're a in-person, I'll just say option 1 or 4. We have packets for all of our students. So even if your child's virtual, you can come by. You just won't have maybe a teacher assignment at that time, but you can come and get school supplies and your learning curriculum, all of that on September 8th.
Great. We've received a few questions about COVID testing. So will the school be doing any COVID tests throughout the school year?
The school will not be doing any COVID testing. The testing we will do, or the things that we are required to do by the state, is every day parents will have to attest to the series of questions that most of you have probably seen if you've been to the doctor, or if you've been pretty much anywhere, that basically says, have you been around anyone who has COVID? Have you had any symptoms? And so every morning, this will be when we come back to school. Every morning, you will have to attest that your child has a no answer to all of those questions. And there will be a little slip that will be given to you that you'll bring, or your child will bring, and or it can be filled out at the door. And then when kids show up at the doors, they will be separated through multiple doors to enter the building, so social distancing, and then they will be temperature checked at the door. If their temperature happens to be high, then they are moved to another area, and there's a protocol to deal with students that would have a temperature, so that we're not sending them down to class. And that would include involving the parent to make sure that all the kids are kept safe. But we will not be doing COVID testing at the school.
Thank you. Will virtual library services be available? Can you please talk about how the library services will transition for virtual students?
We're trying to see if we have the answer to that question. As far as our library at Opportunity, we do not have a way at this time to check out books. It would not be safe for them to go out and then come back and go out and come back. I know the Spokane County libraries have some virtual systems that you can look into. As we get up and running, if there are ways to access online books, teachers will be letting you know about that. For example, some of our grade levels often purchase a program called Raz Kids, and it's online books they can read at their grade level. And so we're working through all of those pieces to make sure we get text and books in kids' hands. But right now, as far as our library at Opportunity, we just have the hardbound books. So we won't be able to check those out, but we will be doing our best to get books in your students' hands.
Thank you. And I would just like to point out that we are at about time, so this will be our last question. But we've received a few questions about Blackboard, specifically for parents who have multiple children. Is there a way for them to access all of their children's grading and assignments and so on without signing in and out of each account?
I don't know how to answer that for sure at this point. But all of our grades, which we don't really do at elementary, would end up in PowerSchool, which is a separate tool. As far as a single sign-on for each of your children's Blackboard, no, you probably have to go into each of those separate Blackboards to see that assignment. I'm not aware of a way that that could be combined into a single login. That would be fantastic, and we'll look into it. If that's possible, we'll notify you.
Thank you. That wraps up the time we have for the Q&A portion of this discussion. We've taken account of all of the questions and can do individual follow-up down the line. So Mandy, I will pass it back to you.
Thank you, Jasmine. I just want to say thanks to our Opportunity community for joining us for the webinar. This is such a new year, and we are learning just like you are about how to do all this online. And we just want to make sure that you have your questions answered and that your students are ready. There's just a buzz in the building. The teachers have been coming in the last week and getting their teaching station set up rather than their classroom, which is very different. But we still have that excitement just like we do every year. It's our favorite time of the year. We can't wait to meet our kids. And so I think the thing that I'd like to leave you with is, we're going to make this year awesome. And it's going to be a year our kids are never going to forget. They're going to think about this when they're 30. And I think we have the opportunity here as a community to make this awesome or to make this miserable. And I think we can really make this fantastic for our kids. And I think the best thing we can do is be flexible, be positive, reach out to each other, connect with each other, and just help our kids learn through this new world we have for a while. I think it's going to be kind of a crazy year, and you know, maybe next year things go back and we've learned some great tools and tricks, and we can teach kids a little bit differently and meet their needs even better. So if you can partner with us to just be excited about the school year and just help our kids have this awesome attitude, I think it's going to be a year we're going to look back on and remember probably for the rest of our lives. So we just want to join you and partner together and make this as best as we can for kids. And please know that we want our kids back as soon as we can get them. That's the reason we chose to be teachers is because we love children. Mr. Howard and I hug, I don't know, 600 kids a day, and it's killing us that we haven't been able to hug them. So even when they come back, we might not be able to hug them, but still, we just love our students. And hopefully you see that from our teachers at Opportunity. And so we just wish you a great evening. Thanks for joining us. And any questions, please just call the office. And we have a large group of people there to answer pretty much any question that you have. So thank you for being here. We appreciate it, and have a wonderful night. Bye.